Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jesse Levine. Today I want to share the story of my type 1 diabetes diagnosis. The clock just turned to December, which means that it's no longer National Diabetes Month, which coincides with the whole month of November. But I personally will never stop spreading awareness about type 1 diabetes, and I think that an insight into my diagnosis story could potentially help someone out there. In this video, I want to talk about the symptoms leading up to my diagnosis, what my actual diagnosis experience was like, some advice that I would give to myself looking back after getting that traumatic diagnosis, and at the end, I want to share one example out of many of how I've turned my diabetes into a strength. You'll have to stick around for the end to find out what that is. I was diagnosed on January 23rd, 2006. Leading up to that date, I was drinking a ton of water, unquenchable thirst, and I was peeing all the time. I would wet my bed, I would have to leave class, and I was also really unfocused. Like, my brain was always really fuzzy. My mom was making appointments for me with psychiatrists, and they were prescribing me Adderall and Ritalin to address what they thought was ADHD at the time. And the verdict is out. I probably do have some ADD. I think that we all do, but I don't take medicine for that. I just take insulin. One example of the unquenchable thirst that I was experiencing is that I was walking in the grocery store with my mom, and all I wanted, I didn't care about any of the food in the cart. All I wanted was cold water. And I remember pulling down liters of cold water and just stuffing them in the cart. And my mom was like, okay, like, I guess he's really thirsty. And in the middle of the night, I went into my parents' room, and they had a little mini fridge where they kept those waters for me. And I remember opening it up and taking 1 liter of water and sitting underneath their desk and just flat out chugging it. And after that 1 liter of water, I was still thirsty. So I took another bottle of water. And after 2 liters of water, I went back to bed, and I woke up and I had completely wet my bed. I think at this point my mom was really suspicious and trying to paint a picture of what symptoms I was having and what was happening to my body. After some internet research, I think my mom was suspecting that I had type 1 diabetes. So she made an appointment at the doctor, and my pediatrician, who I had seen up until that point, was not in the office that day. So I saw her associate. So it was sort of an unfamiliar face to me. The doctor came in after I had taken a urine sample and a blood sample, and she slammed my giant file of papers on the bedside, and the crinkly paper that they put on those beds, I just remember that crunch so vividly. And she took a deep breath, and she looked at me and she said, "Jesse, you have diabetes." In that moment, everything in my world changed. I just remember crying. My mom was crying. My sister was also there. She was in the waiting room at the time, and she had just learned to drive. So my mom's like, "Here, take my car, go to your friend's house. We're gonna take Jesse to the hospital, call you when we know more." And my dad came, and we drove to Texas Children's Hospital, which is where I was officially diagnosed with diabetes. I remember sitting in the waiting room, and my pediatrician, who was not at the office that day, randomly just walked by us. She was like, "So what's the deal? I was gone for 2 hours and you got diagnosed with diabetes?" The quick jest she made of it was such a calming influence, because at that time, everything was just hectic chaos and just tears and slobbery, goobery. Everything was just a mess at that time. And for her to just come over and make a joke, it was like, okay, this isn't gonna be a huge deal. It's gonna be fine. And after that, I remember getting admitted into the hospital, and I'm, full of IVs, and the doctors are saying, "We're gonna give you insulin. You can eat whatever you want as long as you continue to take insulin for it." So they asked me what I wanted to eat, and at the time, my favorite food was a McDonald's fried spicy chicken sandwich with extra mayonnaise on top. And I ordered that, and lo and behold, they brought that to me, and that was my first meal after being diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Looking back on that experience, it's probably not the best idea to have McDonald's in a children's hospital. I would rather them create a program to have healthy, affordable meals instead of McDonald's. But that's a topic for another video. Remember, I stayed in the hospital for a night for them to stabilize me. And then the next day, I went up to the 11th floor at Texas Children's Hospital. That's where I learned how to check my blood sugar, how to dose insulin for carbs and for blood sugar, how to give myself a shot I remember learning how to inject a needle into an orange and then later into my stomach, and there was so much hesitation, and the nurse said, it's better if you just jam it in there, and for the life of me, I could not just jam a needle into my stomach. So I went really slow, and the slower you go, the more painful it is. But luckily they're really sharp, so they just sort of slip in there. That was about 3 hours to learn all of that. If you have ever been close to diabetes, to insulin, to blood sugar, to carbs, it's complex. Like, so much more than 3 hours is needed to understand those concepts and really have a grasp on them. But we did the best we could, and what my endocrinologist said to me was, he sat across from me and his mustache was just flapping in the windless chamber of our room, and he said, so you have diabetes, now you are your own doctor. And I'm grateful for that sentence, because now I am my own doctor and I'm very in tune with my body, but that's a lot of pressure to put on an 11-year-old kid. The experience with my pediatrician and my endocrinologist, and later an experience with my brother that I'll tell you in a second, they were all experiences of someone sitting right across from me as an 11-year-old and talking straight to me and having one or two sentences that just imprinted on my memory forever. After that, I went home and we learned by trial and error, as I think everyone still does. The hospital gave us their diabetes hotline. Call us if you have any problems. We called them a lot because there were many problems. I was sent home. For the first 6 months, they wanted me to eat 90 grams of carbs per meal. There wasn't really any flexibility. It was like, you're gonna eat 90 grams of carbs and you're gonna take however much insulin we're gonna tell you to eat for 90 grams of carbs. And if I didn't want to eat those carbs, then I'd have to either drink juice or a Coke or somehow fill out the rest of those carbs, because when you don't eat enough carbs for the insulin that you've taken, the insulin is going to drive your blood sugar down and you're going to go low. And conversely, if you eat too many carbs and not enough insulin, your blood sugar is going to go high. Trying to figure that out with not a lot of flexibility wasn't the best method to really understand diabetes. It was like, okay, here's a sticker solution. It works for other kids, it's gonna work for you. And that just was not the case. Everyone's body is different, and everyone needs a different amount of insulin and a different amount of carbs. Some people don't eat any carbs, and that works great for them. Some people eat hundreds of grams of carbs a day, and you really just kind of have to figure out what's best for you, what type of lifestyle you want to lead. And at the time, I didn't really have an option. This is what we're telling you, don't stray from the course. My next door neighbor across the street had also been living with type 1, and he was a year younger than I was. We were in a carpool together, and they were a huge help at that point. The advice that I would give to myself is to, one, continue to listen to your doctors, ask questions that are based in skepticism, and talk to the community, because the community has been living with diabetes for longer than any of your doctors have, and they know what's up. The thing that I would tell myself when I was first diagnosed is to allow myself to grieve. A diabetes diagnosis, any diagnosis of any chronic illness, is a loss. It's a loss of normalcy. And if you don't allow yourself to grieve and to process and to experience all of the emotions that come with that, I think that all of the emotions just sort of have the effect of packing into a bottle and creating a hard shell around the things inside of you that are supposed to be soft. One thing that really helped me to break down that wall and to let go of the resentment that I was feeling was another one of these 3 conversations I told you. This one was with my brother. He came home from college one time and just sort of saw how I was being and how mean I was, and a lot of that anger was directed towards my mom, who was my primary caregiver. And she was the one who was, nagging me to take shots and to check my blood sugar, and all for a really good reason, to keep me alive. And my brother Josh sat me down and had a man-to-man talk, and I was 13 at the time. I'll never forget it. He said, dude, you've got to stop being such a dick to mom. And that's the truth. I was being a dick to my mom. All she was trying to do was help me. That's it. She just wanted me to be normal and to live a good life, and I was being mean to her. And when I talked to my mom before I made this video, I was asking her, are there any thoughts that you have that you want me to share? And she said that when I was diagnosed, that was the hardest she had ever worked in her entire life. And it makes total sense. You are playing the part of your 11-year-old son's pancreas, and when you have diabetes and when you're able to understand the effects that it has on you, it becomes easier because, one, you can feel your lows, you can feel when you're going high, you can feel you can sense the patterns of what your blood sugar is doing and what you need to do. But if you're playing that part for someone else and you can't feel what they're feeling unless they're communicating with you, which I was not doing, it's really, really challenging. So the advice that I would give to myself is to allow myself to grieve. Once you grieve and you allow yourself to process those emotions, you can accept the new normal that you must live with diabetes. Yeah, you can still do anything. Like, take me for example, I rode a bicycle across the country with 20 other people living with diabetes. So it's not just a one-off case. There is an N equals 20 for being able to live the life that you want and to do the extremes with diabetes. But if you don't allow yourself to process those emotions first, then everything else is 10 times harder. And just take it from me that if you can prioritize emotional well-being and emotional health, then all of the complicating facets of managing type 1 diabetes will come so much easier. I told you at the beginning of the video that I would share one example of how I've turned my diabetes into a strength. I wrote about diabetes for my college acceptance essay. I wasn't the best student in high school. I really didn't care about school that much. I think my essay showed that I was able to take a challenge and turn it into a strength and learn valuable skills from it and not let it control me. Hopefully my writing has gotten a lot better since then. Here it is in its raw, original form. The title of this essay is called Diabetes Détente. No, no, no! The words caught in my throat. Thick mucus held my words down, like criminals imprisoned for a terrible deed. What did come was a skin-prickling scream of a trapped beast or a tortured cat. My mother struggled to place me into my father's silver SUV chamber of horrors. I resisted, digging my nails into the side of the doors, letting my enamel sink deep into the cold metal. I anchored myself to the outside of the car, creating the image of a misplaced hood ornament, one that resembled an angry gargoyle. My father's ostrich leather boots struck the dull gray pavement in an ominous cadence as he approached to dislodge me from my perch. I felt the powerful grip of his hand as he unseated me from my doorside perch and stuffed me and strapped me into the back seat. I couldn't move. Every wiggle I made, the strap tightened its hold on my 11-year-old, weak, fragile frame. My eyes stung with tears. I could barely make out my father's form moving towards the driver's seat. I was scared, but so was he. I could see the tears welling up in his tired eyes. Tears were incongruous on the face of the strongest man I knew. Thud! The door shut behind my father. I was trapped with no way out. That door shut out childhood as I knew it. I used to consume food with no thought of its nutritional contents. Carbohydrates, sugars, and fats meant nothing to me. I was 11. Exercise was but a vehicle to dispose of excess energy. I napped, walked, ran, swam, biked, without a thought of time or how the actions affected my health. Then, diabetes hit me like the asphalt rising up in the face of a kid falling from his razor scooter. My health grabbed me by the shoulder and forced me to look it in the eye, every single day. Juvenile diabetes changed everything. Diabetes forced me to grow up faster than I could have ever planned. I became, as my endocrinologist used to say, my own doctor. That's a lot of pressure for a kid. 6 years later, the pressure remains. Diabetes is a guessing game. No matter how in control of it I think I am, it never ceases to surprise me. I cannot do everything my friends do. I can't pig out on a Domino's pizza, I can't chug ices, and I can't drink soda pop. Any sugar-laden activity could potentially be dangerous. I have to take care of my body, more so than anyone else my age. I am ultra aware that the slightest blood sugar change in my system could have a negative reaction, and I have to be prepared to respond. However, despite the difficulty of managing it, diabetes and I have come to a détente. I've learned to appreciate it and has molded me into a responsible man. The skewed life course that diabetes has forced me to walk has been a formidable journey, winding its way through summer camps, sports teams, the awesome bar and bat mitzvahs. Even though I eat, sleep, study, pray, and party on diabetes clock, I am the man I am today because of it. For that, I accept it proudly and know that I can face any other trials that confront me with a seasoned understanding of what it takes to surmount a challenge. So, that is the story of my diagnosis. Today, I'm continuing to advocate and hopefully inspire other people living with type 1 diabetes to continue living life to the fullest. I share a lot of that stuff on my Instagram. You can check it out here at jesse.levine_T1D. I'll see you guys next video, and thank you so much for watching. Please hit the subscribe and like button, and yes, peace.